I am so tired of coming on this podcast every single week and telling you to stop playing T.Y. Hilton. Like, just stop it.
Mikey needs help.
Mikey needs help.
I was like, if you don't have Jeff Wilson in here, and if you don't run it on first down, I'm gonna strangle you through that TV.
You should know better than everyone else. That fool tears you up when you plays you.
Yeah, but
Don't you want him on your team?
I have him at number 25.
Thank you. Fine. Todd's the reasonable one on this show.
I take issue with everything he said there.
Well,
I really do.
DeAndre Swift. He's going to break them tackles, son.
That's bold. That's bold. That's putting your nuts on the table right there.
Hey, there's the first time for everything.
Waxing poetic over here with Todd Diamond.
Dude's old.
So what? He's not as old as Brady, and you're jerking him off before the show starts.
I have Sutton in my top 10. I have him at number 9.
Yes.
You know what? I'm just canceling the league. I can't do this with you guys. Hello, MHA owners. Welcome to another edition of the MHA podcast. Another MHA draft in the books, and we're here to talk all about it. Eric Lansing, Todd Diamond, Mike Renault. What's up, fellas? It's Tuesday night. What a fun night it was on draft day. What was the best part of it all for you, Mikey?
The best part of it for me was I was hoping to get one of my top 5 guys in that first round. I managed to do it, and it was nice that we had such a good turnout, with everybody
Agreed.
showing up. So that's always fun.
Yeah, we kind of had some maybes, and usually those maybes turn into no's, and then we ended up having to go online. But a lot of people did show up, and I thought that was exciting to see everybody to talk about their lives, their new jobs, and all that fun stuff. Ate some food, probably got way too much food. Got plenty of chips. Yeah, so if anybody needs chips, I've got chips. Just bring the dip, and we'll be good. But it was a good time. I had fun. Todd, was the best night, part of the night for you?
Absolutely. No, seeing everybody, like I said, I always say our draft, is like in our league is just very unique. Our draft is, always full of surprises and stuff. We got a lot of, smiles and a lot of damn it, and stuff. So it's great. It's great. The draft is always look forward to it every single year. So it's fantastic.
I thought it was great where Quayne wasn't sure if he was going to make it, and then he shows up. It was amazing. Then he left because his kid, I guess he was telling us, screaming at the time of his lungs, wanting the daddy, and then like a few minutes later, he shows right back up again. So three walk-ups. It was pretty good stuff. I like it.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So what are we going to talk about on the show? Well, we're going to talk about mostly about the draft. There's some new stuff we'll go through, but we'll talk about how the draft went for each one of us. And so we're on the show, we could talk about it. First round kind of reactions and what took place there. We'll talk about some guys that went too early, some guys that fell too far, the steal of the draft, and of course, which team had the best overall draft. So let's get right into the news.
Well, this reporter was possibly a little hasty earlier. Would like to reaffirm his allegiance to this country and its human president. May not be perfect, but it's still the best government we have. For now.
And some of the things, I'm sure by now everybody's heard about the Brian Robinson thing for the Commanders, and he got shot twice. It seems like he's going to be okay, so that definitely decreased his value and increased Antonio Gibson's value. So obviously we saw what happened there at the draft. How about the Dolphins cutting Sony Michel? Sony Michel was drafted in our league, but then the Dolphins decided they didn't need his services anymore. Houston Texans, they cut Marlon Mack, who was at the beginning of all this slated to be the starting running back, but I guess now Dameon Pierce could be the guy leading the charge over there in Houston. Carolina Panthers trading for Laviska Shenault Jr. I'm not sure if it's fantasy worthy, but he gets added to a mediocrity of mix in Robbie Anderson, Terrence Marshall Jr., and Rashard Higgins. Easy for me to say. Jimmy Garoppolo staying with the 49ers, taking an $18 million pay cut. Would you guys take an $18 million pay cut?
I mean,
for any reason whatsoever?
I think we always agree. We take $1 million just to sit on the bench, but $18 million. How are you going to live? I mean, come on, Only
Can't
can
pay
buy,
for that. Can't pay for that mansion without that $18 million.
you could probably still find a decent house for him.
I think he'll survive.
Yeah, I
He'll be
think.
okay. We don't need to start a GoFundMe page for Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, I don't think that many people would have too much sympathy for him. You know,
Why is that?
Yeah.
People hate Jimmy Garoppolo?
well, yeah, it was a couple of years ago. People were getting on his case because he was dating a porn star, and then 49ers fans don't like him because he cost him a Super Bowl, and
Wow. I didn't realize there was so much animosity. I mean, he got him to the Super Bowl, right?
yeah, I mean,
It's a lot of hate, but good for him and the porn star. I don't know if he's still with this person, but I didn't know that either. We'll keep moving along in the news here. You guys remember the name Mohamed Sanu?
Yeah.
Still out there trying to make an NFL roster, although he was just cut by the Dolphins. I didn't realize he was still trying to make it out in the world. I guess he's only been around the league 10 years, but it's like Mohamed Sanu still doing it? All right, good for him. I don't know if you guys remember. We talked about O.J. Howard at some point, didn't we? At some point when we started this whole thing back up. Released by the Bills today, so I guess we don't have to talk about him anymore.
I thought for a second you were going to say O.J. Simpson, so I was relieved when you said Howard.
Porn stars O.J. Simpson. Interesting start to the podcast. And last piece of news, unless you guys want to throw something out there, one of the show's favorite all-time running backs, Tevin Coleman, cut by the Jets today. Oh,
Yeah.
so we have a moment of silence for Tevin Coleman.
It's great. The NFL finally realized what Mikey did all the time.
He had that one game about 3 years ago. I don't want to hear it. All right. Any other news that we should talk about that I missed today? I guess fantasy relevant news.
No, I mean,
the extent of it, huh?
I mean, it was NFL. I mean, obviously, the Broncos just did, just cut down some players, but other than that, nothing really going on.
Nothing, Mikey? Nothing.
No, not unless you want to talk about former fantasy star Philip Lindsay.
Oh, was he cut today?
He was.
Oh, I didn't see that. Yeah, former was he fantasy relevant for 2 seasons?
Mm-hmm.
Bad. Running back. The lifespan of a running back just doesn't last that long anymore.
No, sir.
I mean, he made a name for himself. He was a write-in on draft day, so good for him.
Yeah, a write-in. Had a few of those this past weekend. All right, well, let's get into the draft. Let's first I don't know if we want to toot our own horns or talk or crap on our own picks or whatnot, but how did the draft kind of go for you guys? We'll start with Todd Diamond. When you have had a couple days to look at it, to see how things are going as we head towards week 1 here in about 10 days till next Thursday or whatnot. But you see your team. Do you feel good about it? Any mistakes or a favorite pick or whatnot? Just give me some of your thoughts.
Well, first of all, I mean, my first 2 picks, I mean, I was just on cloud 9. I did not think Aaron Jones was going to be there on the turnaround. I really didn't. I mean, I know, he still has A.J. Dillon there, but my first Najee Harris and Aaron Jones, holy crap. I could not have scripted that any better. Those two running backs back, I'm on cloud 9. So I was just, I mean, we saw the draft. I was like, hell yeah. Like this was great. We were only 2 rounds in and I was already excited. So my first 2 picks, love them. Probably one that maybe I guess when we get to the reaches, I guess, at least for my team. I mean, did I reach on Jerry Jeudy a little bit because everybody thought Sutton would be, first, but again, I just really believe in Jeudy a little bit more. And I think, like I said, once the regular season, gets here and, lights are on, I think his game will turn around. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, that was more of I just needed another running back, and I probably maybe could have got a better value maybe somewhere else, but I thought, getting another running back and seeing if he can maybe turn a corner a little bit more than he, after his rookie season. So other than that, I really do like my team. There wasn't anything that, like any getting sniped or anything like that, or I think just my first two picks just had me kind of on cloud nine. I was just like, this is great. The rest of the draft's going to go great. So I didn't, I think I think I feel really good about my team and how it's going to, shape up.
Yeah, for sure. I think just looking over your team, yeah, I imagine Sutton being there instead of Judy, and it would have just been a huge upgrade. I don't hate your team by any stretch. You got a decent tight end, and you waited on it, which was great. And Russell Wilson, depending on who you like, but it's not a bad team. I mean, you got the guys you wanted, and you always want to get the guys that you talk about and want on your team, and so not a bad job. Mikey, what do you think about your team?
I mean, the first three picks I was ecstatic with. I had to make so many tough decisions, though, in certain areas. Second round being one of them. Between Kelsey and Aaron Jones, and the fourth round I was choosing between Eli Mitchell and Allen Robinson, and in both scenarios, I don't know. I kind of went with my gut. I went with what I had through my rankings. Like, I don't know. I feel like I've got decent depth, so I'm happy with that. Uh, I think I probably waited longer than anybody else when it came to the receiver position. But so all in all, positive outlook. I'm never like over the moon because it's too early for that. You don't know what's going to happen.
Sure. Any snipes that took place for you? Maybe the Allen Robinson, because you were talking about drafting him in the fourth round, and I think it was one pick away, right, from the fifth round for you.
Yeah, and so I really didn't know if I felt like he had the better chance of making it back around than Eli Mitchell did. That's why I went the direction that I did, and I got close. I got within a
Yeah.
pick. So,
Do you have a favorite pick, or do you have a guy that stands out?
for me, my favorite pick is probably Patrick Mahomes. I mean, here's a guy that he went right or wrong. He went in the first round to the champion last year, and I kind of went back and forth between him and Brady as my QB1, through my rankings. And still, even when I was up at that pick, I was still kind of maneuvering back and forth. But to be able to get who I eventually decided on as my number one guy in round 3, I felt pretty good about that.
You and I are in the same boat. I did a little after you, but we got our tight end and quarterback early. You mentioned waiting on wide receiver. Any regrets at that at all in terms of getting those second and third round wide receiver opportunities as opposed to going to Kelsey and Mahomes? And you look at the depth, and when I look at my team, I think about, well, what could I have had at wide receiver at running back as opposed to Tom Brady and Mark Andrews. Now, I mean, there's a reason why we went for those guys, but any thoughts of maybe you could have waited on quarterback and picked up more depth at a wide receiver in the third round?
Maybe just a twinge, and the reason I say that is, one of the other tight ends that I was high on was a guy I had last year in Darren Waller, and I didn't really think that he was going to slide, all the way to the 6th round like he did. Hindsight's 2020, but had I known that, then my strategy maybe had been a little bit different.
I hear you. Do you have a least favorite pick? I
Uh,
don't know if
my,
anybody's willing to admit that, but is there anybody that maybe you'd think
I'll,
twice on if you got to do it again? I guess. I mean, you mentioned the Darren
yeah,
Waller thing, but is there something else?
no, I'll play.
Okay.
I'll play. So here's the one that maybe, and we'll see how this turns out. But I was high on Chris Godwin, and I thought about taking him in the 6th round. Didn't do it. I took Adam Thielen. I had both pretty close together. But I had a little bit of excitement with Thielen given the Vikings now with a new offensive system in place, so I decided to go there. Then I also had a chance to take him in round 7, but I didn't do that either because I was looking at the board with running backs, and Chase Edmonds happened to be like the only guy that I was still kind of like real high on, and I saw an opportunity to get a third running back that I liked, so I passed again. So I mean, I don't know if that'll come back to bite me or not, but I mean, maybe there, I would say.
I mean, I like your Chase Edmonds 7th round pick
Yeah.
to kind of add just in case Mitchell gets banged up here or there. But he was one of those guys I kind of liked as the preseason went on. I'll quickly go through my team here. I'm ecstatic that Justin Jefferson fell that long. You talk about guys that that fell too far. He could be the number one wide receiver just based on volume, based on lack of talent around him. I mean, it only helps him when Adam Thielen's there, but with the offense you just mentioned, he could be putting up all kinds of numbers. And I'm pretty excited I got Joe Mixon, who was, I think, my fourth or fifth ranked running back, and to be able to get him in the second round was pretty incredible. And that's kind of why I went the tight end Tom Brady. If I'd gotten guys that I wasn't super thrilled with, I probably would have went more depth at wide receiver, running back. But since I was happy with those first 2 picks, Andrews and then Brady, was phenomenal. After that, it gets kind of murky because Dobbins, Penny, and Godwin all have injury issues. So depending on whether they're ready for week 1 or not, those are guys that if they're healthy, they can bring incredible upside to the squad. And then, so, I mean, I like my team. I don't know if there's anything I would go back and do differently. I mean, I thought about Brandon Cooks a couple of times and maybe should have pulled the trigger on him at some point just because he'll be ready for week 1. And despite it does, I mean, I know he plays for Houston, but he always putting up numbers, and Mikey can attest to that. So I would say Justin Jefferson's my favorite pick, but I also kind of like Darrell Henderson in the 10th round, the running back that, with him and Cam Akers, I mean, Henderson's been productive. He's been averaging close to 5 yards to carry his whole career. So he may split carries with Cam. He could also not get any carries because if they are really invested in Cam and want to run with him, but I think they also know both these guys get banged up. I mean, I think most all running backs do. So he'll get a decent amount of mix in it, a decent amount of run, I should say. It's not he won't be getting left behind by any stretch. So I feel pretty good. Those top 4 picks are incredible. After that, once those guys are healthy, I'll feel a lot more better about it. Let's talk about the first round, and I'll just kind of quickly go through this as we refresh the internet here. So Josh Allen went to Allen and the Belt Sanders, then Jonathan Taylor, then Najee Harris, then Cooper Kupp to Cooper's cousins. Christian McCaffrey to Kilgore Trout. That was one pick Mikey was hoping would fall to him. He's still got a great running back in Austin Eckler. Derrick Henry to 7th overall. That's wild to me. Dalvin Cook in the 8th spot. Justin Jefferson to me. Devontae Adams to Aaron. Alvin Kamara to NWA. And DeAndre Swift to the notorious CUP. So obviously we always talk about when's that first surprise going to take place. Took place with the very first pick. Not super surprising considering who is taking it. He's trying something different. He tried the McCaffrey last year and it didn't pan out. He also tried Mahomes 2 years ago, and that didn't really. Not that it was Mahomes' fault. He finished 3rd overall that year. But so Mikey, just some of your thoughts when you saw Josh Allen go off the board first.
See, I originally thought that it was like, well, his last name is Allen, taken by Allen. Thought maybe
I didn't even catch that yet.
But no, I mean, I can see, what he's thinking. We are a points per completion, more of a quarterback league than, most other leagues. And so he's trying to take a stab at getting what the possible, number 1 guy is. And running backs have tended to burn him. So he's kind of got that in the back of his head when he's drafting. I understood that. When he said that he wasn't going to take a running back, I thought maybe he was going to go wide receiver and potentially take Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. So yeah, when Josh Allen's name came up, I was like, I'm a little surprised, but at the same time, I was like, okay, this is good for me. This means that I'll even get somebody that I had higher ranked on my list. So I was excited about it.
Yeah, I think that was exactly what I was going to say next. Because, well, If anything, it pushes the rest of the guys down to us, right? Justin Jefferson to me. Super thrilled with that. Todd got his guy, obviously, Najee Harris. Todd, 8 running backs in the first round. A lot of, we talked a lot about in the offseason, whether it be more quarterbacks taking the first round. We kind of had this talk about wide receivers who were kind of the more consistent. A lot of great ones there that you could take in the first round. Running backs, especially for the 2021 season, got beat up. A lot of disappointments, but I don't know. Maybe it felt like 10 years ago when running backs were running backs and people went for it. How do you feel about it? 8 running backs in the first round.
Well, that just means they, listen to the podcast, to the running back podcast, when I said running backs are not a dime a dozen. So I'm going to give a pat on my back for that one there. But no, I wasn't surprised that 8 running backs went, in the first round, because again, you want that, you want that, the phrases, you want that security blanket, and a running back is your security blanket, and you want one of those top guys. And
Is it a
like,
security blanket? I mean, I just
feel,
mentioned, like, I
but
believe at least one running back or every running back in the first round last year ended up getting hurt and disappointing owners when the wide receivers that were drafted produced. So I don't know if you can call it a security blanket. I see what you're saying. There's a lack of elite guys and they run out, but if you're looking for security and safety, isn't it a wide receiver?
yeah, yes, but the fact that wide receiver is so deep, you want to at least see, okay, let me get an elite running back, and then I can get maybe 2 or 3 or 4 elite, or close to elite wide receivers. I mean, at least hopefully the first wide receiver you draft is at least elite, and so forth, and then the rest of your wide receivers are at least, close to that eliteness. But running backs, you want at least one of those elite guys to at least feel, to feel comfortable.
Mikey, you want to say anything about those 8 running backs, or are there any other surprises that kind of, I don't know, took you off guard when you saw the pick jump on the board?
Well, I thought a lot about it. Like, it's kind of the way or not, I won't just say our league, but the way most leagues work. With running backs kind of taking up that big bulk of the first round. Like, I get it, and I really did think about like taking a receiver like Devontae Adams in that spot, but it was just really hard because I wanted to be able to get, if I could, a top receiving option, a top running back option, and a top quarterback. That was my plan in the first 3 rounds. Had I gone that route, I didn't know what running backs were going to be available come my spot in round 2. And, I probably would have ended up with Aaron Jones in that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so hard to tell. And being able to have Eckler, who's a receiving back, in that spot, that's what kind of clinched the difference for me, at least. But I don't know. I just think I'll say this: having one of those top receivers, it makes your team different in a way where it's hard to. There's only so many of those guys. Like, people see, well, there's only this many running backs. I think there's like less of those like truly elite wide receivers, like maybe 4 or 5 of them. The position in itself's deeper, but there's less of those truly elite ones.
Yeah, and like I said before, they're healthy. They get hurt less. I'm not saying they don't get hurt, but they stick around. They're not getting beat up by linebackers. They're getting pushed out of bounds by smaller cornerbacks usually. Any other surprises in the first round that kind of stood out? It seems like it was pretty basic. I didn't see anything too crazy. I'm surprised Jamar Chase fell in the second round, but again, I think that's the product of Josh Allen kind of going. But that was really it.
I mean, I think a lot of people were surprised, not if they listened to the podcast, but like if they didn't, like about Najee Harris going
Yeah, that's fair.
3. You know, I thought there was surprising. I thought we did a decent job, like with our mock draft. We were off like on the last 3. We had Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, and Aaron Jones going in the first round, which they didn't. But I think overall, I think we did an all right job.
Good job, team. Way to go.
Yeah.
I'll say that I'm pretty transparent because when we did the mock draft, I did end up, when we were doing the round 2, I took Mahomes and Kelsey. So if people were paying attention,
Oh, that's right. Okay. Well, there you go. Transparent. Mike's not gonna lie to you on this podcast. I don't know what I was gonna do with this. I just thought it was interesting, but there's a couple of teams that were hoarding wide receivers. You could talk about Notorious CUP, who ended up getting Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, DJ Moore, Rashad Bateman, and Michael Thomas. So you had those 4 guys in the first 8 rounds. So that's 5 guys in the first 8 rounds. I can't use them all, but he's got a slew of them. And then you got Cooper's cousins, who ended up selecting Cooper Kupp, and then T. Higgins, and then Scary Terry McLaurin, and then Hollywood Brown. So he had wide receivers 4 of the first 5 rounds. I don't know if there's anything to say about it. I just thought it was interesting.
Probably maybe potential trade bait for later in the season, maybe.
I guess. I mean, you're trying to fill out a roster to put. I mean, you have 3, at most 3 wide receiver spots, including that flex. And then I understand there's talent, and you want to have talent, and maybe you don't want to take a running back because the wide receiver is much more talented. I get that too, but you got to fill that running back spot, and it just hurts you later. No, yeah. I'm not saying that was. CUP has a good team, so take it for what it's worth. I just thought it was interesting, and it just. Go ahead.
Well, in his scenario, I mean, you can make trade. I mean, look what he did last year. He had drafted Brandon Ayuk in the 7th, 8th round and traded him for Javonte Williams. So, these things can be done.
So go out there and ask them for trades if you need a wide receiver, because they've got a lot of them. All right, we'll keep on going here. It's guys that went too early. Let's try that again. All right. So let's talk about guys that went way too early in the draft, kind of these big reaches. We'll start with Todd. Anybody jump out at you?
I'll probably say one of my guys, just because obviously when I picked him, I got a little I think Jerry Jeudy. I think that was just more of me being a Broncos fan. Reaching for him way too early. I'll go with Jeudy. I'll go with Jeudy because I'm looking at that. As much as I said I believe in Jerry Jeudy, but I think I reached a little bit. I think I could have waited. I could have waited the next round, and he could have still been there. As many Broncos fans as there are in this league, but I think I could have waited.
Well, let's say that you realize at the time of the draft you would have waited. Who would you have wanted to select at that point?
I probably would have selected Allen Robinson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Mikey, any guys that stand out to you in terms of maybe drafted a little too soon?
I'm going to go with Damian Harris in round 4. Like, I get it. Like, he had a ton of touchdowns last year, but as many people that wanted Ramondre Stevenson in this draft, like
he got named a couple of times.
I don't know. I don't think Damian Harris was a very good value in round 4. I didn't really like Josh Jacobs at the beginning of round 4 either. I thought that was a little bit of a reach. David Montgomery in the 3rd, I think, is a little bit of a reach. Nick Chubb in the 2nd, I think, is a little bit of a reach. So all running backs.
That's the problem, though. 8 went in the first round, so at some point they kind of start to run out. I mean, you talk about, because I thought the same thing about Josh Jacobs, and I was like, well, who would every guy that I listed, and you'll hear him from me, is like, these are guys I would taken over him. And then you look at Josh Jacobs, and he goes, well, I would take Eli Mitchell over him. I don't know if I'd take Damian Harris over him. Would I take, and I'm just going through the list here, Brees Hall over him, J.K. Dobbins, Devin Singletary. I'd probably take him over Devin Singletary. But yeah, you just kind of look at that, and it's just the running backs run out. And I kind of said the same thing. So at some point, I don't want to say they panic, but at some point you got to take a running back if you're trying to fill out a roster.
Yeah, I just I had guys like on my board ahead of Josh Jacobs. Like, I kind of like AJ Dillon more than him. Like, I would have probably wanted to take a chance on Travis Etienne before him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just me not liking Jacobs all that much, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it was mostly running backs that I thought were kind of being reached for.
Yeah, if you talk about running backs, two guys that went right next to each other, Miles Sanders and Devin Singletary. They both went in the 5th round. And you talk about guys like A.J. Dillon and Rashad Penny and even Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I would have taken all of those guys over those two. And I get the upside of Singletary and what he did at the end of last year. And you've already heard about me talk about not being thrilled with what Miles Sanders brings to the table. So I thought those guys probably went a little too early in that 5th round. But those are all, if you like those guys, great. If you don't, yeah, Etienne was another one that was amongst those guys. So did anybody think that well, no, never mind. I know who I'm talking to. I thought Devontae Adams over Jamar Chase was early. I think Jamar Chase should have went over him. But you guys like him a lot more than I do. So that's an Eric Lansing move right there.
Yeah. I mean, we're splitting hairs, though. I mean, they're on the same level. So, I mean, that's just a matter of choice.
Sure, but I feel like we have to talk about as much every round, even if it's nitpicking.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody in the planet that has mock drafts or the so-called pundits and the experts all had Jamar Chase in the 1st round and Devontae Adams. Not that he shouldn't be in the 1st round, but he's the reason why that Chase got moved to the 2nd round. What else you got? Anything else, Todd? Guys that went too early?
No, those are those. That was.
Well, you had one. You had one. Don't say those. You said you had yours.
Yeah. No, that was pretty much my only one. Actually,
someone didn't do their homework.
I'll say Juju.
Yeah, that's one I had. Juju in the 4th round before Sutton, Hollywood Brown, Robinson, Jalen Waddle. Allen Robinson would have been the guy, but I mean, if you think he's going to be the number 1 and Patrick Mahomes, I guess it makes sense. But I didn't have Juju for quite a while, and I just thought that was kind of early too.
Well, I mean, talk about it all the time. With who these wide receivers and these running backs are attached to, and I think, let's face it, whether it's good philosophy or bad philosophy, we're just like, well, he's attached to this quarterback, and he'll do a lot better than he did, with the previous quarterback. So I think that's just, we're all guilty of doing that. That's, drafting a player because of the offense that they're in and so forth. So just some food for thought.
Last couple that I had, I'll just throw out there. Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if 6 rounds early or not, but he was drafted before Dak, Stafford, Lamar Jackson. Thought that was a bit early.
I agree with that. Kyler Murray, he went over him too. So,
well, he's a guy that we'll talk about. I thought he fell way too far. Kyler Murray. The last one I'll say is Brandon Ayuk in the 6th round, ahead of guys like Gabe Davis, Brandon Cooks, and Alan Lazard. Like Ayuk is in his 3rd year. He could break out. He's got 10 total touchdowns over his first 2 years, but these other guys have way bigger ceilings in terms of where they can reach. But Allen in San Francisco 49ers, not surprising, but still went too early. All right, Mikey, guys that fell too far.
Well, I mean, I think Kyler Murray's pretty obvious on that. I mean, I had him last year, and the only reason that he probably dropped so far was due to the fact that he got hurt. and due to the fact that he had some offseason drama, and DeAndre Hopkins is hurt for the first 6 weeks. But that being said, like, he still has the potential to be, a 50+ guy that could be a top 5 quarterback. I mean, with all those guys that went in front of him, I don't think I could say that about all those guys. There's way bigger upside with Kyler Murray. I thought Kareem Hunt in the 8th round may have been, a little bit too low. You talk about a guy that, like, even though he gets limited work, like, he's good pretty much every year in his role. And to go into the 8th round, I thought that he slipped pretty far. Melvin Gordon in the 9th round, I thought slid pretty far. I mean, these, for running backs going as early as they did, like, there's a couple of them that kind of took a nosedive, and people got some deals on them.
Yeah, any that you recognize, Todd, or did he kind of go through the ones you mentioned?
I was gonna say Devonta Smith. 10th round. I think because obviously getting AJ Brown now, they're going to, defenses are gonna like hone in on Brown, so that's gonna open more space for Smith. So Smith going in the 10th round, it's a little low. I think I would have taken him over. To be honest with you, I would have taken him over. And it's probably going to sound crazy to say, but I would have taken him over Amari Cooper. Guys like that. So, it's surprising because I thought, like I said, having AJ Brown now in that offense, it's gonna shift the defense a little bit. So that's gonna open more opportunity for Smith now. But I mean, I guess at this point, that's a good value then, if anything. But, it's for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the same thing. I mean, I'm not on the Eagles bandwagon, so I didn't write him down. But he's one guy that kind of went across my vision. Kareem Hunt was another one I had. Brandon Cooks. I thought about him probably 3 separate rounds at some point, and he's just not sexy. And so people don't look at him, and he's on the Texans, but he was on the Texans last year and finished 19th. He finished 18th 2 years ago, 7th round by the Gonzo Cats, who is a Houston fan, so he understands that he's could be productive, and he's probably one of those guys maybe I should have taken over someone, but he was one guy I thought about, and 2 guys, and you mentioned Amari Cooper, Tyler Lockett, like it just felt wrong that they went so late, Cooper in the 9th and Lockett in the 10th. And I know as Bronco fans, we've seen firsthand what Drew Lock and that offense. I know Geno Smith was announced as the starter, but we just know the potential or the lack of what could take place. But like to see Amari Cooper and Tyler Lockett 9th, 10th rounds, it just feels like that's too low, even though the situations around them aren't glowing reviews of why they should be taken earlier, I guess.
Right. Like, at a point, like, they become values.
Yeah.
Like, because are they going to be as good as they were in their previous spots? Probably not. But they're not going to be like go from where they were to being like, they're not going to be scrubs. Like, they're just not going to be. They're just not going to be as good. So
their ceilings are very limited.
Right.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna say one of your players, running back or players you were really high on was Michael Carter, going in the 9th round. I know Mikey drafted him, but I mean, we don't know with Bryce Hall. Really, I mean, obviously during off season and preseason, and everything. But Michael Carter still may get a good majority of those, carries. So going in the 9th round, kind of a little low on him because he had a good rookie season.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors of it being the Jets, and they bring in Breece Hall, and you just don't know what that dynamic's going to look like. Now, was Michael Carter, did they draft a guy because they just didn't like Michael Carter, or do they want to run a 2-back system? It's hard to say. You just don't know, because there was weeks that Michael Carter he wasn't the most efficient running back. Like, he had moments where he would catch a bunch of passes and run for 50 to 70 yards. But I mean, I wouldn't call that electric. And in this young lifespan or a short lifespan of running backs, and they like Brees Hall, he's probably going to get a majority of the carries. We just don't know. And I think that's what kind of scares people off. And when you're in the 8th, 9th round, you take guys like that and hope for the upside, and that then ends up splitting, and they could be a Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon scenario. I don't know.
Yeah, I just try and look for a path. So like what I'm trying to decide running backs I laid is like, well, is there a scenario where, this could happen? And yeah, I mean, you said he did have a good year, and yeah, they brought in a rookie, but there is a way where Michael Carter could play a big role in that. Whereas like guys that went like right after him, like Naheem Hines, Alexander Madison, like guys like that, the only path is the guy getting in front of them getting hurt.
Right. Yep. Very true. Very true. I asked you guys to answer a question in terms of a pick in the 13th round or later that can make a huge difference for a team. Mikey, who did you have?
Well, I went with Zamir White. He was a guy that, we already talked about Josh Jacobs, but they cut Kenyon Drake. So obviously, at least in my eyes, the Raiders, there's something that they like about him. I know Amir Abdullah is there too, but he flashed a little bit in the preseason. So I don't think it's something that's going to happen right away, but I can see scenarios midseason where you start seeing that name pop up.
Yeah, we've heard a lot of negative Josh Jacobs reports in the offseason. The only thing that scares me, because I mean, it's a late pick, but we talk with G, who works for the Raiders. He knows a little bit more about their scenario than most, and he picked Josh Jacobs early. So we'll see how that all kind of works out. But I mean, that was the reason why you talk about a path, right? It could definitely happen if they don't like Josh Jacobs and he ends up in the doghouse. If based on the like ESPN depth chart, he's the guy behind him. So there's a path there. Todd, 13th round pick or later that could make a difference for a team.
I'll say Jarvis Landry. Obviously, going to the Saints, new offense and so forth. I mean, obviously you have Michael Thomas, but I mean, Michael Thomas, they're going to have to slowly kind of wean him back in. You have a rookie. Jarvis Landry could definitely come in and be, maybe be Jameis Winston's, I'll say it again, but, kind of maybe a little safety blanket, for him, because you can put him in the slot, put him on the outside. So I think that was definitely a good value in the 14th round. I mean, obviously I know Jarvis Landry injuries and everything, but I think it's a good value. It's a good value there, and I think he can definitely make, he can make a difference for sure.
One guy that I picked was actually Rondale Moore, a guy who we don't know what things are going to look like 6-7 weeks down the line when Hopkins gets back. But, if you believe in Kyler Murray and that offense, and for me, who believes that Mr. Connor is going to lose some of his touchdowns because he just had a ridiculous season, Rondale Moore could be a huge beneficiary, especially early for Mr. Hot Tamales over there. And he was preaching about him before the draft and in those podcasts, and he ended up picking him up. So well done there. I think he could be huge for guys just looking for wide receivers. That's not a bad pick at all. So in your guys' opinion, just give me one. Who was the steal of the draft? Which pick was the steal of the draft, Todd?
I'm going to say one of my guys, because I think it really is going to pan out, is Julio Jones. I mean,
my goodness.
Yep. 10th round. The fact about he's, like you said, he's going to a great situation. And Godwin's gonna be banged up for a little bit. There's no more Gronk. I mean, right now I really have is Mike Evans. So I think Julio. I was kind of surprised. I thought maybe Kevin would, pick him up earlier than the 10th round, since he's a big Buccaneers fan. But no, Julio Jones. I think this is going to be is going to be a good thing. This is going to be a great thing. It's going to be great.
I think it says a lot when Kevin didn't take Julio Jones. Maybe he knows a little better than the rest of us. But all right, Julio Jones. Mikey, who was your steal of the draft?
So I'm gonna go same team, same position, but different guy. So I think it's gonna end up being Chris Godwin. Um, here was a guy that the only reason that he fell as far as he did was because he's coming off of an injury. But he has been one of the most consistent, wide receivers in fantasy over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. A guy that's easily been averaging, double digits, you know, 12, 13 points a game. And to be able to acquire somebody like that and somebody who it's looking like he's on track to play week one, that's why I said I passing on him twice. That's going to be one that I'm going to be following, but I think that's going to turn out pretty well for you.
Excited to hear that if that ends up panning out. And that was the reason why I picked him up. So I had a couple options. Let's talk about same team in terms of, Leonard Fournette going in the third round, considering he finished 7th overall last year. They really don't have anybody in there. I mean, I guess if you believe, what's his name, Rashad White's going to come in, but that dude catches a lot of passes and scores touchdowns at the goal line. But I also had Melvin Gordon in that mix. We talked about him, who could finish. He finished 20th last year. If the same thing happens this year, he was definitely going to work out and pay dividends for Bishop Sycamore. But I think it's Kyler Murray, 9th round. It made me think about my draft, and man, I should have waited instead of taking Tom Brady in the 4th round. If I knew that Kyler Murray would have lasted to the 9th, I could have picked up depth somewhere else. And that kind of rolls over into the next question for Kilgore Trout. He's one of the guys that I picked as who had probably the best draft. Maybe not super depth wise for Kilgore, but if you just look at his roster and he also has Leonard Fournette, who he had great value. So he has great value there. He ended up getting Allen Robinson, Amon Ra St. Brown, who I thought was a great value there at 7, and then Kyler Murray on top of it. He was one of the guys I thought I had a better draft. I mean, I'm not a big Kyle Pitts guy, but he got himself a decent tight end, and so he's got a decent squad. I thought it would, that's who I thought would had one of the better drafts. Mikey, who do you think had the best draft?
Tough question, and I didn't want to choose myself. But
it's hard not to choose yourself. I understand. So I just took my name out of the mix altogether. He's my own name.
I mean,
but if you honestly feel it's you, preach it, son. Tell us why.
I like a lot what Kilgore Trout did. I actually liked what Miles did too. I may not have been a huge fan of the the Nick Chubb thing, but getting Jonathan Taylor, he was able to get Dak Prescott in the 6th round, who I know he lost a bunch of his receivers, but I still think Dallas is going to need to throw the ball.
And he also has his tight end in Dalton Schultz. So
he does.
If anybody's going to pick it up, he has that on it as well. And he picked that tight end late in the 8th round, so that's not bad either.
He does. If James Conner is anything what he was, in the second half of last season, and Juju's in a better spot, Cortland Sutton's in a better spot. Like, there's potential for his team to kind of crawl out of the bottom of the standings where it was.
Todd, what about you? Who do you think had the best draft? Is it going to be you? Because you talked about your own team a lot today.
No, I'm going to give my team. I'm going to give my team a rest. As much as my first 2 picks, my first 2 picks are telling me, Todd, we had the best draft. But no, I'm going to give it to Kevin. I think Kevin had the best draft. Henry, Javonte Williams, Michael Pittman Jr., and Deontay Johnson. Those first 4 picks, phenomenal. The fact you get one of the best running backs. The fact that Derrick Henry fell that far. Javonte Williams, who I think is going to have a breakout, really have a breakout year. Pittman Jr. is going to have a breakout year, and so forth. So, and Lamar Jackson, that's another player. The fact that he's in contract year, so he wants to prove something. So, yeah, much as I would want to say my team just killed it, and we like the Terminator, y'all. Hasta la vista, y'all are done. But I'm not gonna do that. But I think Kevin had the best draft.
Kevin's team ain't Mikey's team. Mikey is not a Lamar Jackson guy.
That would be my reason.
Of course.
The last thing I'll say is I kind of like, as crazy as CUP went with the wide receivers, to have Swift and AJ Dillon as your top two guys in terms of running backs, and then Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, DJ Moore, and then still get Stafford late and Zach Ertz. And he's got some decent depth back there. I mean, I'm a big Rashad Bateman guy. If he can wait on Michael Thomas to see if he pans out at some point. He's got a pretty good team. I was thinking it was between him and Kilgore. So interesting. We have kind of different teams that we like more than others, but that's what it's about, right? You have guys you like, guys that stand out, and it was fun. It was fun. I mean, I've not stopped looking at the draft board and trying to decide what could I have done better to make it a better. And I don't know if you can. There's things during the middle of the draft that maybe you didn't plan for, and guys you waited on, and maybe they didn't get back to you. But I feel like we all like our teams, so that's positive heading into week 1.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, I think whether it's your first pick, second pick, third pick, and so forth, you're just like, wow, I really got these either couple picks right, and that just makes you feel really good about your team. Like I said, I felt just on cloud 9 that I got Harris. I stuck to my guns and picked Harris, and that Jones came back around. So I was like, oh, this is great. Like my first 2 picks, I mean, home runs, touchdowns, game over. So
he's calling game over for the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably gonna
watch out, league. Harrison Jones coming at you on a weekly basis.
That's right. To quote,
even though he said Jerry Jeudy went early.
Yeah, that's reverse psychology. I want to get in Jerry Judy's head. Like, listen, man, come on. And I still believe in Jerry Jeudy. I think Jerry Judy's still going to have a great year, and we're going to see his full potential, regardless fantasy or reality. You finally have a quarterback that will get him the ball, and he knows like he has to catch it. With Peyton, like DT dropped a lot of balls too, but when Peyton start throwing him the football, he's like, I better catch these right now. I better not drop one single pass. So just one of my classic lines. I'm just saying.
I wish you wouldn't.
Yeah, I know. I wish sometimes I wouldn't either, but I do. So.
Any parting words, Mikey, before we get out of here?
I'm just, excited to get this thing going. Like, it seems like, whatever the week and a half that we have to go, it's like, I know it's going to take forever, but there's definitely some anticipation in this. I'm ready to kind of get off this 3 or 4 year skid that I've been on. I'm not making any bold proclamations, but just looking forward to having a good year.
I'm with you. I just want to be competitive. I want it to be fun. You obviously want to dominate and win every week without thinking about it. But I feel like we have a pretty smart league for the most part. It's hard for people to dominate anymore. I looked at my record after making the playoffs last year, and I was only 8-6. So, I went on a streak late, especially in the playoffs. But that's why it's fun. I know we talked about, poor Joe Vaccarelli, he's out of it. Kilgore Trout's out of it. He wins 4 in a row, and he's right back in the mix. So I think that's what makes it exciting, is that a lot of teams are in the mix till the very end. Most of them are. So that makes it more fun, more engaging. We'll see if this app that Kevin sent out, if people get on it and want to talk trades and talk smack and whatever the case may be. But it's a fun league. We love having everyone there. good turnout at the draft. But we probably won't have a show next week since there's, we drafted a little early this year because we were trying to make everybody's schedule work. So next Tuesday really won't be much to talk about because we're still waiting on week 1 to take place. So we probably won't have a show next week. But then after that, we'll be back on it and getting ready for this 2022 NFL season. So thanks, guys, for coming on. Thanks for being at the draft. And then we'll see all of you next time on the MHA podcast. Easy for me to say.